Hello BookTube. Today for Tag Tuesday, I will be doing the 25 Bookish Questions tag. I'm not entirely sure who created this tag, so I will leave links to the two booktubers whose version of this tag I have most recently seen. David Murphy and Mike of Riff Raff's Reading Renaissance. Question number 1. Ebook or physical book? Physical book all the way. I love holding a physical book in my hand. I love the physical act of reading that book. I love being able to create a space filled with physical books. And while I have danced around it for every time I've answered this question or a similar one to it, I don't really like e-reading. While I grant there is efficiency in the storage, both of the e-reader itself and of how many books you can store on that e-reader, the act of reading a book on an e-reader has never failed to royally piss me off. It enrages me when I try to go to the e-reading function, in this case Kindle. It enrages me to try to pick a book. It enrages me in the formatting of that book, of trying to turn the pages, of when I accidentally touch a word, it thinks I want to highlight that word, of trying to get out of the program, of trying to read poetry, which I've never found an e-reader to actually decently format poetry. And when I try to read a comic book, particularly American superhero comics, it invariably fails. I accidentally touch a panel and it blows up, and I cannot get back to the page itself. And I don't want to read a comic panel by panel. That's just going to annoy me and take forever. So, physical books all the way. Question number 2, paperback or hardback? For this, I'm going to split my answer along the lines of parts of my library. When it comes to the part of my library that I call classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama, I prefer paperbacks. There are some books that a hardcover is more appropriate. Complete Shakespeare, really big anthologies, or collected editions of particular writers' work. But for the most part, I prefer trade paperbacks, and will usually wait for the trade paperback to come out if there's a new release that I'm particularly interested in. If that book is not going to get pretty much its initial release in a trade paperback. When it comes to history, I prefer hardcovers. I don't quite know why, but I much prefer hardcovers when it comes to history. I think largely because I'm more prone to immediately go for a book of history when it's initially released, because the paperback release may take a few years compared to the next year with fiction. Although that said, I'm not opposed to either one. There are plenty of paperbacks in my history collection, less hardcovers in my classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama section. Question number 3, online or in-store book shopping? Online book buying all the way. It has been several years since I have actually been physically inside a bookstore. About 3 years ago, my aunts came to visit my mom for her birthday, and they came actually on my birthday. So one of my aunts took me to Barnes & Noble and I went shopping for a little bit. That was the last time I had been to a physical bookstore. Before that, I think was the 2019 Friends at the Library book sale. I think was the last time I went to a book sale. So it's been a very long time. So all of my book buying is online. Although there's a part of me that would like to go in person book shopping, but I don't really have the capability of doing that. So by force, it's online book buying all the time. Question number 4, trilogies or series? So I'm assuming probably the original creator of this type probably was a science fiction and fantasy fan, largely because those two genres basically are trilogies and series. And I think sticking with science fiction and fantasy, I prefer trilogies to series, largely because I think trilogies are easier to finish and can be a bit more controlled. Series can sometimes go off the deep end. When it comes to general fiction, I haven't really read any trilogies or series. And the same is true of history, where I've never actually read a complete trilogy or series. I know I'm working my way on the Revolution trilogy by Rick Atkinson, which, I mean, there's a third book needed. He's written a few trilogies on World War II. I think Richard Avery does trilogies. James Holland, although I've never read either one of them. And Richard J. Evans. The only series I know of is by Simon Heffer. He has currently a tetralogy of British history from the ascent of Queen Victoria to the beginning of World War II. Although the later two books in that tetralogy are not available yet in English. But in that case, I think I probably would still prefer trilogies over longer series. Now, this is, of course, only prose. Number 5, heroes or villains? I think I'm still more attracted to villains than heroes. They are usually more interesting. But I'm also finding myself drawn more to heroes as well. Question number 6. A book you want everyone to read. I don't know. Because these types of questions sort of bring me up short. Because I don't really have any book that immediately comes to mind that I'm thinking everybody should read this, or that I want everyone to read. Because my tastes aren't everyone's tastes, and what I might recommend, you might not like. And that's not very nice. If I'm like forcing somebody to read something that they ultimately don't like, it's not terribly nice. But to follow along with the prompt, I think let's go with Big Wonderful Thing by Stephen Harrigan. It's a big history of Texas. Number 7, recommend an underrated book. Again, see my answer above. What's an underrated book? I guess maybe Flyover Country by Austin Smith. It's a slim volume of poetry that I don't know has gotten much recognition. Question number 8. The last book you finished. That would be the second volume of The Gray Man by Katsura Hoshino, which I read yesterday. The Gray Man is a manga series set in an alternate 19th century about a young man named Alan Walker who has a deformed arm that has sort of a magical item embedded in it that allows him to create a weapon that can destroy artificial demons called Akuma, which are weapons created by an evil magician called the Millennium Earl, who seeks to destroy the world. Number 9, the last book you bought. That would be volumes 70 through 81 of One Piece by Eiichiro Oda in 4 3-volume omnibus set editions. I ordered them last week from Pals, and they should be shipping sometime today or tomorrow, and I will likely get them in the mail sometime next week. One Piece is one of the most popular manga series. It's about a young man named Monkey D. Luffy, who, when he was a child, was sort of a mascot of a pirate crew captained by red-haired Shanks. In the penultimate visit of the pirates to Luffy's village, Luffy ate a magical fruit that granted him elastic abilities. Think Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. 10 years later, Luffy sets out on his own to become a pirate, and he goes on adventures, builds a crew, all in search of the One Piece, a fabled treasure that will allow him to become king of the pirates. And One Piece is a very long-running series. Prompt number 10. Weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark? Just bookmarks. I've never really used weird things for bookmarks because I always have a lot of bookmarks. Currently I have one big pile of bookmarks. I have so many bookmarks, I don't know what to do with them. And I have many bookmarks hidden away in several of my books. Then when I pull them off the shelves, open them and see that there's a bookmark in there, I'm shocked. Like, I didn't know I had this bookmark in here. Number 11, used books, yes or no? Yes, I do buy used books quite frequently. For a while I've been using a Libris, but I've also shifted to Pals as well. 12, top 3 favorite genres. So I'm going to break things down a little bit. I guess maybe I can combine everything. Anyway, so shonen battle manga. So manga, Japanese comics, is divided into 5 age and gender categories. Shonen is manga targeted at young men in the late middle grade, young adult, and new adult age range. And battle manga is basically about the protagonists, the story progressing through battles, and the protagonists and other characters being developed through the conflicts produced by these battles and the results of these battles, both in physical, mental, spiritual, magical capabilities, as well as in character growth. Okay, that's shonen battle manga. History, and I guess maybe contemporary poetry. I was thinking about breaking this up into having like a fiction section, but to be honest, I don't really have a favorite genre of prose fiction anymore. For a long time, it would have been science fiction and fantasy, which a lot of shonen battle manga is. But when it comes to the prose form of science fiction and fantasy, I have long since lost interest. So, for right now, for sure, shonen battle manga, history, and I guess contemporary poetry, but that third one is uncertain. Where was I? Okay. Number 13, borrow or buy. Buy. I buy all of my books. I have not used a library since the start of the pandemic. 14, character or plot. I would go with plot over character. 15, long or short books. The right size, the right length for the story or argument to be told or argued. Although I prefer mid-sized books. 16, long or short chapters. Short chapters. I do prefer shorter chapters to longer chapters. 17, name the first 3 books you think of. Now, this might take a bit because questions like this always drive any thought of what the subject, what the question is out of my mind. So, let's see. Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto. Larvae of the Near Stars by Catherine W. Carter. And Maria Teresa by Barbara Stolberg-Rillinger. Translated by, I think, Michael Savage. So, manga, poetry, and a biography of Maria Teresa. Books that make you laugh or cry. Well, I can go with a twofer for this. Well, one to answer both. Twin Star Exorcist by Yoshiaki Tsukino. I just recently read the penultimate volume, and it made me both cry and laugh. So, and I'll talk a bit more about that sometime this week when I do a separate review of my July pre-orders. Because otherwise, this weekly reads will take forever to go through. Question number 19. Our world or fictional worlds? Fictional worlds. If I could leave this world and go to somewhere else, I would. Of course, that would imply that I had a superpower. So, yeah. The ability to travel between worlds could be cool. Anyway, moving on to number 20. Audiobooks, yes or no? No. I am not a fan of audiobooks. 21. Do you ever judge a book by its cover? Yes, I do. Number 22. Book to movie or book to TV adaptations. So I'm guessing the question is a preference between film or television for adaptations. And here I'm going to thread the needle and say what's best appropriate. For example, some adaptations should really be television and some should be movies. I think short story adaptations, movies, and I think more literary fiction would be movies as well. But longer books, longer novels, novel series, I think should be television series. So say, for example, Dune. Dune would work better as a one-season miniseries, like a one-season show. Not a single movie or even a two-part movie. It should be a 9-episode or 10-episode television series. One Piece. There's an adaptation of that. It's a television series that's perfect for that. I've heard some rumors of adaptations for Naruto and My Hero Academia as movies. Probably should be television series. Full Metal Alchemist. I think there was a trilogy of movies. Preferably, it should be a one-season television adaptation, TV series. But then movies would be like, say, American Gods by Neil Gaiman. That probably should have just been a movie rather than a television series. And so that. Anyway, moving on to 23. A movie or TV adaptation you preferred more than the book. From Russia with Love, I preferred the movie to Ian Fleming's book, which I prefer. Most of the James Bond movies are better than the books, except for Diamonds Are Forever. Also, I would say Sandman. I prefer the TV adaptation to the comic book. Although I've only really read the first story arc of Sandman, but I prefer the adaptation. And 24, series or standalones. For this, I'm going to go with series because right now my reading is dominated by manga, and those are in series. So I prefer series to standalones, although when it comes to prose fiction and history, I actually prefer standalones over trilogies or series. And of course, for 25 is to tag others, which if you would like to do this tag, consider yourself tagged. Anyway, BookTube, I'm going to go upload this video and go get me a drink because I'm starting to get thirsty. So anyway, BookTube, I'm hopefully going to have a second tag up in a few minutes. So if I'm successful with that, I will see you shortly. So until then, thank you and have a great afternoon.